Firstly, thank you very much for joining us. Today, I'd like to talk about strategic investors and who we are as a company, where we've come from, what we do with our clients, how we support them through their journey, and ultimately how you could possibly become involved and work with us as a team moving forward. So look, really easy to put something like our vision and our mission up on the screen. When it really comes down to it, when you sit down with one of the team from strategic investors, what you're going to feel and see is the connection, the passion, and the belief in what we do and how we support our clients moving forward. We want every part of the journey that you have with us to be a rewarding experience, something that's actually supporting you, your whole family, getting from where you are to where you want to go. What's my goal here today? Really just dig into who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Nothing more than that. Now, at this point in time, I would ask the audience, what are you looking for when it really comes down to it? And very possibly right now, for a listener to this recording, what I'd be suggesting is, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Because unless we actually understand where we actually want to go, and then we start writing those things down, very possibly they're just dreams. We need to start getting clear on where we want to go. And there's one of the words or phrases we use so much with strategic investors is creating clarity in your strategy. When you're clear, when you know and understand and are knowledgeable about where you want to go, things start falling into place. So for me today, it's letting you know who we are. That's my goal. Look, I'll spend about 35, maybe 40 minutes going through our slide deck here today and telling you about us. But that's my goal. Hopefully that's in line with you and you can put the time aside and really listen to what we've got to say. Now, yes, like all property groups or all presentations, there should always be some real clarity around who we are, what we can say and what we can't say. By trade, I'm a real estate agent. By trade, I'm a buyer's agent. By trade, I'm a financial advisor. By trade, I'm a finance broker. I have all those things. And I'm also a registered nurse. Went right through the whole nursing system and did multiple certificates, diplomas, degrees in nursing as well. I choose not to use any of those skills right now, right through from the nursing, right through to all the finance qualifications. I choose rather, and our company chooses rather, to sit in the space of education and support of our clients that we work with. We do network with finance brokers and accountants and buyers agents and real estate agents. They all brought in to support you on your journey to creating clarity and building your investment portfolio. Today, there's no financial advice, and nor should there be. Because to offer up financial advice in this sort of setting, when I don't know everything about you and you making financial decisions based off that, that couldn't be anything worse to do. So please take on board the information today, understand from where we're coming from, and then we can sit down and talk about strategy and building that team behind you. One of the questions we ask quite often, and look, this would be I could do this Cementimeter. It's a question for yourself. Are you a first timer? Are you a new investor? Are you a couple? Where are you at? And some people go, yeah, I've got this. But look, I just want to check in and see and understand how you could possibly support me to fine-tune that portfolio. So we won't be going through the Mentimeter results at this point in time. We'll get right into it. A couple of questions for you. And these are always really interesting to ask people when we first sit down with them. So they even know the difference between a real estate agent, a buyer's agent, or a bank manager, a mortgage broker, a conveyance solicitor. Now, today is not about explaining the difference between each of those people. The reason for the question, though, is, do you know what each of these people's roles are? And unless you really understand the difference and what each person's role is, how can you potentially be using them in your portfolio? How can you potentially be using them and having them support you when you don't really understand what their role is and the power within it? Bank managers and mortgage brokers are just as important as each other. Same with conveyancers or accountants or bookkeepers or estate planners. They're all people that make up your team. And you need to understand the power of each and every person that's in your team. We'll talk about that if you choose to sit down and have a chat with us. So who are we? Where did we come from? Well, tell you a little bit of a story about a nurse. This nurse, Duncan, that's me. Way back in the 80s, Duncan did his nurses training in the old hospital system. I was one of 26 nurses, one male of 26 nurses. And for 3 years, I was the only male nurse there. And I was always fighting the system and always trying to, well, it wasn't hard to stand out, but always trying to make my mark and actually be recognized as someone that could be a good nurse. I finished my training. I went on and did my midwifery. Yeah, and that was even crazier, from going general nursing and moving into midwifery. Helped deliver 36 babies in my training time. So had some wonderful experience there. And then when I did geriatrics, the whole other end of the scale, and then went to university and did my diploma degree and then rehab. And fortunately, got to a point where I was offered positions to run hospitals. And the area that I specialized in was rehabilitation nursing. And I actually think that rehabilitation nursing and what Strategic Investors does with their client is very, very similar. See, the role of a registered nurse in rehabilitation was to be the coordinator that sat alongside of the patient. Now, the patient had had a stroke, heart attack, broken a leg, brain injury, spinal injury. Something had happened to them, and their life was never going to be the same again. And the role of the nursing team, the rehab nursing team, was to help that person get from that ward, that rehabilitation ward, back home as independently as possible. They may need new skills, they may need aids, they may need support. But the rehabilitation nurse coordinator was then to go, do they need physio, hydrotherapy, occupational therapy, et cetera, et cetera? Who do they need brought around them to support them to get the outcome they want? So I needed to understand what was happening for that patient. Strategic Investors is very much the same. Unless you actually understand where you're at and where you want to go, there's no point in bringing people around you. So rehab nursing and what we do, I think, are actually very similar. And it's a wonderful metaphor to really set that whole idea up. For us, yeah, we were. We were the clueless investors when we first started out. And, you know, there's me over the years sort of thing. You know, the marketing team have a lot of fun putting that together. But who am I? I'm a father, I'm a nurse, I'm a facilitator, I'm an author, a traveler, and an investor. And I love everyone, every part of those, every one of those are a different journey. I've been fortunate enough over the years to really become involved with a number of different groups. Some of you may have heard of Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins, and he does some wonderful events right across the world. And I've become one of his facilitators over the years and support him. So being involved in that circle and having that support of some very, very knowledgeable and experienced people right across the investing world has been a wonderful journey. I'm also very much part of youth leadership, and I love working with the youth as well and supporting them and creating new leaders into our world. So yeah, there's some funny photos of us there, funny photos of me there. And that's who I am. But now I wanted to dig into what gives me the right to stand up here and talk about investing and talk about how to build portfolios and create clarity. Well, a couple of points. First of all, my journey from 0 properties to 5 properties. That was between 1987 and 2000. It took us all those years to build a portfolio of 5 properties. First one was Matella Road, fibro weatherboard house, $40,000, $40,000 in 1987. And the interest rate, yep, 7.5%. Was it a good property? No, it was an absolute shitter. But then the accountant sat down and said, Duncan, Chris, you're earning too much money. You need to go and buy a property. And one of the things in the 80s and 90s in Australia was negative gearing. You know, you go and buy a property that costs you money to run. Well, we did. First place we drove past on the way home from seeing the accountant was 44. Now, we still got that property. It only costs us about $200,000 to buy. It's now worth about, in 1989, it's now worth $1.5 million. So it's done okay over time. It wasn't the right property in our portfolio at the time. That's a different story. Again, we're on holidays. Belmore Terrace in Queensland, Sunshine Beach. Beautiful, beautiful spot. We're up there. Couldn't believe that the property, a 4-bedroom townhouse, effectively looking down over the beach, was worth just on $200,000. We bought it. The idea was we were going to come back there and have lots of holidays there and et cetera, et cetera. I've been back once since buying it. And that was to do a massive renovation about 6 months after we bought it. Beautiful property. Has it also gone up in value? Yep. It's now worth just on $1 million. So again, has done its thing over the years, but it wasn't the right property at the right time. King Street Wharf. We had changed accountants by then, but the accountant that we were using said, you should buy this. Yeah, we did. And it did pretty well. We just didn't know that he was paid literally tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars for having us buy that. Wasn't worth the money that we bought it for. It has recovered over the years. Again, wrong property, right property, but wrong time. Monument. Well, you can use the word monumental muck up here. Man, this spruiker had us totally hooked in. And maybe some of you have been to spruikers, maybe some of you have been to seminars where someone's got this really beautiful pitch about why you should buy here, the benefits of buying here and all of this. This monument complex was at the bottom of Oxford Street, right past where the Mardi Gras went once a year. And it had a glass-sided pool, so I could actually be swimming and watching the Mardi Gras go past. I was so emotionally hooked on buying this place, and what a wonderful place. The price tag is $670,000. Yeah, sounded cheap. We bought it off the plan. And when it settled, our bank manager said, sure, you can afford it. They sent their valuer out. The valuer went, 670? Nah, 550. $550,000 was what they valued it at. And then they didn't give us an 80% lend. Now, some of you might understand that, that's how much the bank lends you. They only gave us 60% lending on this property as well. To top it all off, the monument was actually an old IBM building, and the company had come along and gutted it all out and decked it out with units. But they hadn't replaced the plumbing. They hadn't replaced the lift shafts. So within 6 months of buying the place, literally, there were all these special levies coming out. And I can hear people going, yeah, so you never buy a unit, never buy off the plan. Yeah, you're right. It can be done really wrong. Within 6 months, we had our first special levy of $20,000. And for the guys there that shave, if you've ever nicked yourself, it isn't just little nick. It's like we were gushing money into this place. It was about this time we actually got some coaching. We'd actually bought our own principal place residence in Hornsby at that point in time, built there as well. And we actually started getting some coaching. Now, the thing is that when we bought these properties, we bought them all for different reasons. There was no plan, there was no strategy, there was no idea behind it. And it wasn't until we actually sat down with our team that we started developing and realized that they were all the wrong properties. And that's a big thing. That's a big aha. What's the power of a team? Well, power of the team, we sold some properties. But as a result of selling those properties and refinancing and restructuring our loans, we actually went from 5 properties to 25 properties in just on 2 years. So 0 to 5, 15 years, 5 to 25 in 2 years. Something had to change, and it was all about the team. It was all about getting clarity in our strategy and working out what we should be doing. We bought all over Australia. The first 7 properties we bought were all positive cash flow, massive cash flows coming in. Why? Because we were so negatively geared. We were getting the low income rebate from the government. If we'd lost one of our jobs, we would have been up Pooh Creek without a paddle. We bought in Perth and Port Hedland, Kalgoorlie, all over the place, Mount Isa. 7 properties just to get us back to zero, where the property portfolio wasn't costing us anything. And then from there, we bought further properties, became trading deals and putting equity in our portfolio. Now, from there, people started going, well, how the hell did you do what you did? And we actually started getting a lot of interest, and friends started asking us, how did you do it? It's like, well, it's easy. You get a coach, you get a buyer's agent, you get a good finance broker, you build a team around you, you put a plan in place. And that's where strategic investors really started coming from. Now, our personal journey didn't stop there and hasn't stopped. We actually went on and actually over between about 2004, 5, right through to 2010, we went to the States and we bought a lot of property over there. Personally, we did 50 deals over there. We had a lot of other Australian investors that came with us, and they also did investing right through from places like Texas and the New York State into LA and even into Nevada. So I had a lot of fun going right across the states, building and buying a portfolio there. I tell you that only because it's different markets, different rules, but it gave us a lot of experience around how to really take care of investors and how to really take care of building a portfolio. That Anthony Robbins gentleman that I mentioned before, one of his statements, if you want to be successful, find someone who's already done it. And one of the states taught us that, and Australia taught us that we didn't have the skill set. We didn't have the knowledge. Working with people that had the knowledge and worked in that space all the time. Not my brother-in-law down the street. And I can bet any Aussie that's sitting here who's been to a barbecue in the last 6 months, if there hasn't been someone that's talked about friggin' property and the pros and cons of whether they should buy here. You should buy this because I bought here, it was really good. And no, never buy here because that doesn't matter. Everyone's got a barbecue story, but they're not an expert. And just because they've had one deal that's gone well or not well, doesn't give them the right to advise you on what you should be doing, because your situation is unique. Sit down with a team of people that have got the experience, that have actually had the successes. And more than likely, if you duplicate their processes and what they've done, and they're coming from a holistic approach, you're going to get some great results. I always like acknowledging people. One of the things I find amazing in this country of ours is that we don't take time to acknowledge the people around us. I worked with a gentleman by the name of Sam and Jason from a company when they were starting to build out their investment portfolio, when they were starting to build up their investment business. And very much it's because of Sam and Jason that I'm now standing here with a team around us to support our clients in developing their portfolios. Also, Robert Kiyosaki, been fortunate enough to talk with him, work with him, and understand his methodology as well. Same with Robbins and Dale Carnegie. I'm one of their trainers as well, and I spend a lot of time in and around working with clients and helping them in all areas of their life as well. And that's part of what we bring to you as potential client. You need your team, qualified, experienced, specialized industry leaders in putting together, and the word there is holistic. I should actually bold it up. Your team right now, if you're looking at the whole investment process, is actually up to 27 different specialties that can be involved in you buying a property. 27 different people. Now, I don't know about you, but don't you always want the best person working for you and with you in every area? They've only got to make one little change, 1 degree change at every point, and that can make a lot of difference in your results. Questions for you, and these are something you can be writing down and think about right now. How much cash do you need to start investing? Now, if you don't know that, what the hell are you even opening realestate.com for and looking for a property? Why are you even asking where I should be buying when you don't even know how much money you've got to start investing or how much you need? What available equity? How much passive income do you want or need in retirement? There are so many steps to go through before you even start looking at a property. Always interesting to get the results of that when we actually do that survey. Here's something for you to have a think about, and I love this stepping stone here. So many people go, well, I want to be free financially. Woohoo, be free financial. Well, that's maintaining your current lifestyle plus 2 or 3 significant luxuries. If you actually start reading through this, and I'm happy to send out the slide deck obviously to you, most people, when they really look at their financial situation, haven't even got financial security. And unfortunately, the number of people we sit down and have a chat with in their 35, 45, even 55-year-old age groups that aren't even financially secure. Yet they're staring down the barrel of retirement in 10, 15, 20 years' time. And they're hoping, wanting, desiring for the results to come in. Where are you at? It's pretty stark to actually have a look at that. But one of the things we do when we sit down with our clients is get real with you. And get real with the numbers. Because when you get real with the numbers, then we can actually talk clearly and sensibly about where you actually want to go. One of the things we talk about when we sit down and actually get to that number is, okay, what have you got? What money have you got? Where are you at? Money can be a money-making machine. Money can make money, or money can take money out of your pocket. So are the investments you've got actually helping create more money, or are they just pacing time? And a very simple idea is that if you have $100 and you put it under the mattress today, in 12 months' time, with the inflation rates in Australia around that 4.5%, that unfortunately is going to be worth about $96 in 12 months' time, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're buying assets that aren't growing truly in value, might be giving you some cash flow, but if they're not truly growing in value, it's not going to serve you. So is it a money-making machine you're creating? And creating that in your strategy is what it's about. It's the idea of compounding. And look, I've got a couple of tables here, very simply looking at it. Okay? If we look at what money can do for us, well, yeah, as it compounds, it really starts growing. And if you look at this chart here, you go, geez, 15 years, and I've only got $32,000. 15 years, I want to be retired in 15 years. Well, you look at 5 and you go, 5? What, $32? What's the point? The point is that when you invest, the real growth, the real value of what you've invested in actually comes from the longer term. See, most real investing is get rich slow, but get rich will happen. It just takes time. Another one there. And look, any golfers out there, go and have a game of golf and put this bet on the table at the start of the match. Every hole that you win, 10 cents. Second hole, let's double the money and double the money. And if you look at these numbers, geez, you can get to the 14th hole and it's only $819. But the difference between the 14th and the 15th hole and the 17th hole and the 18th hole, the numbers start getting pretty significant. What are you doing with your money? Is that money really going to grow for you with the investments you actually put in place? Another question. How much do you need in retirement? We asked that as part of the survey before. How much do you need? Well, it's truth. You go and put $1 million in the bank now. Who's got $1 million to put in the bank right now? Great. You might get 5, you might even get 6%. But if you haven't got $1 million to put in the bank right now, how can you get that return? It's only $50,000. How much do you need? 50, 75, $100,000. Do you want $150,000 in retirement as a passive income? We need to know that number to reverse engineer it to come back to where we are now. Just some thoughts for you, some ideas for you. And if we actually get real about it and start talking about Joe and Bob here, Joe, 19-year-old. Fortunately, we've got more and more of our clients, a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. I call them kids as a dad. Yeah. And just the idea of putting a bit of money away each month, $300 a month. Now, not necessarily going to get 10% per year, but the concept is what we're looking at here. He put some money away. He stopped at 27. So just did it, not for that long. He only invested $28,000 all up. But another one, age of 27, he also goes, gee, that's a good idea. I'll start putting money away. And look what happens in retirement. Bob has to keep putting that $300 away every month until he's 65. And he only ends up with $1.5 million. But Joe, who stopped at 27, only invested $28,000, ends up with 1.8. Why? Because he started now, not in years to come. And a little bit now, invested now, has a huge impact down the track. One of the exercises we go through when we actually start talking to our clients is the gap map. Where are you at? And one of the wonderful exercises that we go through is this in digging down into really looking at what's your real position, where you're retiring, what's happening for you, looking at your living expenses, and as a result, looking at what the financial gap is. It's a wonderful, wonderful exercise to do. And if you want to get nothing else from working with strategic investors or looking at working with strategic investors, take the time to sit down with a team and look at the financial gap map. Because when you start looking at that and what's actually happening, you'll actually see there's massive potential there. It's just a matter of when you start. Now, a lot of our clients, as I said, around that 35 to 45-year-old age group. And very simply, if we look at a 35-year-old with some super and no investments, because we all get paid super by our employers or we have money building up in super, generally a 35-year-old, even on 115,000 K now, which is not far off where we're at, he really hasn't got much money to invest with, and very possibly into retirement within a few years of retiring, he's going to be living on the pension. Now, I know you can't necessarily see all those numbers there, but then you take that client, you take that 35-year-old, and you actually start looking and going, well, what else if we actually just put 4 properties into his portfolio over the next 3, 5, maybe 7 years? The numbers are significantly different. And the way I word it is that green is good, blue is bloody awesome, red is bad, and black is even worse. So green, no plan. Yes, he's got a bit of green there, got a bit of spending money before he retires, but he's got a lot of red into retirement. Where just putting 4 properties, and he can do that based on the numbers he's got, just by putting a few properties into his portfolio over the next 5, 7 years, all of a sudden he's got lots of green. So now he's actually got money to spend and invest with up until retirement. And in retirement, there's lots of blue there where he's actually got money above his expenses to go and spend. So I don't know what you want to achieve in your retirement. But what we do know is that as an asset class, investing in property can be very powerful when done correctly. Won't go into all those numbers there, and very possibly it needs a little bit more explanation. The idea being no properties, no investment is the first chart. The middle chart is 4 properties, just doing okay, not high yield. We look at more high yielding strategies. Obviously, those numbers even increase more so. Where are you at is the question. No strategy or a strategy? What would you like to do moving forward? To compare the pair, we talked about these guys before, but if you think about that self-managed or that super fund ad that's on television where they're saying compare the pair, it doesn't take much. What it takes is you taking action. What it takes is you taking control of what you want as results. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be the 35-year-old doing something, or in 35-year-old in 12 months' time still doing nothing? Just 1 year. Just 1 year of doing nothing and procrastinating, going, oh, yeah, the interest rates will come down. Oh, no, there's going to be a property correction, a market crash. Oh, no, I heard this and that. And you're listening to the people off the back of the cornflakes packet and off whatever social media, and you're not understanding what's really happening in the market. Just 1 year right now of taking no action in retirement will cost you close to $250,000. And I don't think there's one person listening to this that couldn't do with an extra $250,000 in retirement. That's a hell of a trip overseas. 1 year. Doing exactly the same thing, but just waiting 1 year before you start. Those numbers are pretty significant. So if you'd like to do this, more than happy to sit down. That's my first real call to action there. If you'd like to sit down and understand your financial gap map and what's possible by creating clarity in your strategy and putting that in place, that's exactly what Strategic Investors does. So a couple of questions for you. We're on the home run now, so we're nearly there, but a couple of questions for you. How many investment properties you need? Now, again, I'm not actually running the survey right now, but it's always interesting to see what people think. Principal place of residence in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 plus properties. What type of properties do you need? Houses, house and land, commercial, rural. Should they be positive, negative, neutral? Who even understands what positive or negative and neutral means? If you don't know the differences there, if you don't have clarity on how many properties you need to get to your goals, or what sort of properties, or whether it's negative, positive, or buying off the plan or existing, or buying to state or local, if you don't know the answer to these questions, don't even bother looking at that. There's no point. Get the plan in place first. How many properties do you think we need? We believe you need 5. Why 5? At 5, it's a mark where you can actually create over a 5 to 7 year period, put in place a passive income generator. By years 10, 12, that generator is generating that passive income for you. But you've got to start now to get that result in that 10 to 12 years' time. Why 5 properties? Well, there's a show on television at the moment here in Australia, the 1% Club. They stole our logo and they stole our picture, but look, the 1% Club. It's actually not even 1%. It's actually 0.015% of the Australian investing population ever get to owning 5 properties. And as I said, we believe you need those 5 properties to really set up that opportunity to have a passive income into retirement and actually support the lifestyle you want. Why don't they get past that first and second property? Generally, because they haven't even got the framework to get the finance right, to get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. 1% Club, a little bit hazy this slide here, but literally that 1% Club, we're right over here. Monaco, Switzerland, Australia, then New Zealand, then the US. From an investment portfolio point of view and what we're actually doing to get us into the 1% Club, there's not many people that actually get to that point. Now, if I was doing this in a live scenario, I'd ask this question, and possibly more guys that answer this question, but I also like it when one of the ladies stands up and talks about what sort of car they'd buy. If I asked you what sort of car you'd be buying right now, very possibly, someone would stand up and go, I want a sports car, a 2-door car. I want mag wheels. I want tinted windows. It's got to be red. It's got to be a V8. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. It's got to be electric, whatever it is. And you'll have this massively succinct set of buying rules for you to buy the car. And you know exactly the price tag. You'll know everything about it. Now, one of our clients was in exactly that position where we sat down with him. And at the time, the Nissan GTR he was going to buy was going to cost him about $70,000. And his whole emotional reason for buying that GTR and doing all these things to it was so he could fit in with his friends who also had all these racy, fancy cars. We'll talk about him a bit more later on. Now, why do I use the car? Why do I ask you about that? Well, let's ask another question. Tell me specifically what your next investment property should look like. What are the buying rules for your next investment property? And unless you can give me the same clarity that you could when you talked about your car or your next car you want to buy, why are you even going shopping for a car? Why are you even going shopping for a house? The clearer you can be, the better results you're going to get. Apologies. There you go. You see, we strongly believe that when you're building a portfolio, that it's not about the next property you buy. Yes, it's important to understand the buying rules behind the next property you buy. In actual fact, it's how what you buy now is going to impact the next one, and then how those two will impact the third, and how those 3 impact the 4th, etc., etc. You need to be very clear on how you're setting yourself up when you're building your portfolio. One of the exercises we go through with our clients also is what we call literally the 5 property plan and the 5 stages. An acquisition phase, a consolidation phase, and a lifestyle phase. The acquisition phase is about how to set up each time to buy the next property, to build that portfolio up. And again, these numbers aren't meant to be totally visible, but hopefully you'll get the idea is we need the first property to perform so we can go to the second and third, as we said. Now, sometimes you might hold on to that first property for just 10, 12 years. You might hold it for 13 or 15 years. You might not sell it at all because we don't know what's going to happen in 10 or 12 years' time in your life. But if we can build a portfolio of properties that are supporting you and are not really costing you anything on a day-to-day basis to run and manage, they just get to do their thing in a passively in the background for you. Buy property plan is all about that structure of how to actually set that up moving forward. The acquisition phase of when we're buying it. Then we're going into that consolidation phase when we're actually looking at what we actually want to keep and trade and whether we want to buy a PPR, that sort of thing. And the lifestyle phase is we start selling down some of those assets to create that massive passive income, pay off some of the debt that's associated with those properties, and then have that lifestyle phase. It's not rocket science. Yeah, and I jokingly say sometimes you can teach a monkey how to buy a piece of property. It's very easy, the mechanics of buying property. But what I can't teach a monkey is which property to buy. And that's where that strategy comes in. That's where the team really has that place. Now, that GTR driver I was talking about, or the one, he didn't actually buy the GTR. And as it actually happened, this gentleman, this 19-year-old kid, was introduced to me. And I met him through his mum. And she sat down one day after one of our seminars and Duncan, I want to sit down and talk to you. It's like, okay. And she goes, I want some help with investing. Okay. And as I used to do then, yeah, pen and paper back in those days, it wasn't all digital. She goes, I said, well, tell me about your portfolio. She goes, well, I've got this one. I went, okay. I went, great, that's a good start. And she was a single mum, and I've got this one. So, okay. And she went on, and 14 properties later, she told me about a portfolio. It was 14 frigging properties. It's like, Stella, how the hell am I going to help you? Like, you're doing okay. She goes, no, it's not me. I don't need the help. I'm all good. I said, yeah, you're right. It's my son. He doesn't understand what I do. And he's got all this money. He wants to go and buy a Nissan GTR to be with his friends. He goes, can you please talk to him? And I was like, well, I actually like Nissan GTRs myself. And at the time, I actually had a Nissan GTR as well. So I was like, this is going to be a pretty hard sell for me because I sort of understand exactly where he's at and trying to get him across. We did. We sat down and had a chat. And he didn't buy the Nissan GTR. He actually bought a property just near Parramatta. Now, that was 10, 11 years ago now. Since then, he's actually bought 7 more properties. He's now living in Hong Kong, working in the merchant banking industry. And he's actually got a couple of nice European cars over there as well. So delayed gratification and building a portfolio the way it's meant to be done. It's amazing what you can do when you have a good team around you. I like that story about Nick, and we've had a lot of other clients very similar to that when they've actually started investing. Why doesn't it work? Why didn't it work for us? Why doesn't it work for clients that we sit down and talk to and understand where they're at? Because they invested randomly, like we did. They sell one of their properties in the first 2 to 3 years because they don't know what's going on. They lack the planning to go forward because they don't have that simple idea of clarity. Why? What stops us? There's so many things. The market conditions, what the press is saying, what's actually happening, human emotions. Oh, the market's good. Buy. No, the market's bad. Sell. And we're on this friggin' roller coaster all the time. And we get impacted by the human emotions, the market conditions, because we don't have a plan and clarity around what we want to do. There's a whole psychology behind investing. And it doesn't matter just about property. There's a whole investing cycle of investing psychology that goes through. And so many people don't understand this. And they get caught up in it because they haven't got the team that are actually supporting them. Property market in Australia is around 12 years long. From the top of the market, where it's a seller's market, to the bottom of the market, can be 6, 7 years. The time to buy can be just a 1 or 2 year period in that whole 12 years in each of the different cycles right around Australia. We want to be buying at the right time, not when the market's about to boom. We've already missed the growth then. We want to get in there before the growth happens. Property doesn't increase in value. Well, okay, if you don't understand the property increase in value in Australia over the long term, and you don't understand the property price are going to continue to increase, I can't help you. Yeah, we just got to look at data. We just got to look at information. We've got to look at the supply and demand. There's so many factors that are going to continue to drive growth in Australia. Nothing's going to stop that. Not even COVID slowed it down. In fact, we had some of the biggest years we've had in nearly 20 years in Australia in investing or in property values, and COVID was going on around us. Just some thoughts. Where are you getting information from? You can go right back to 1900 and look at all the different world events that have actually happened. And yes, at points, the property market dropped down a little bit. But if you just look at that 120 years, there's been some pretty significant growth. It's a long term. Again, what different financial markets actually had on the overall property prices. I could spend a lot of time on all these graphs and love these graphs. Investing is all about data. When we sit down and talk, if you choose to, yeah, we'll dig into the data on how it actually impacts you. And here's some local prices. Doesn't matter where you're at in Australia. Here's some markets, what they were doing in 1970 through the 80s, 90s, and even right up to 2020. Some pretty amazing figures. The methodology is what we're about. First of all, we've got to look at you and the investor. And as the investor, we get that right. That's the foundations and really go from there. We put the team in place to help you then build on those foundations. And as a result of those foundations, the team around you, we build the strategy and we educate you. Because when you're educated, you actually understand what the hell you're doing. You're in control and you don't have that fear of making a decision. People just don't make decisions because they just don't understand. And it really is that simple. Become an educated investor and we'll support you through that process. And there's some numbers there. Over the years, 1,500 clients we've helped in the last 20 odd years. On average, they bought 3.5 properties each. Not bad in that 5 to 7 year period. So we believe in putting that multi-strategy together for our clients. 4,500 properties we've helped people buy over that last period. Average growth, 6.67%. It's not huge, but it's consistent. And that's what we want. We want consistency over the long term. And the average yield is about 4.9%. We're actually pretty happy with those numbers for our clients. We're not trying to set the world on fire. We're not trying to retire tomorrow with our clients. We want to build sustainable portfolios that are going to give them the results they want as they move forward. So, really simple, 3-step process. Book in a time. Let's sit down, have a chat. Get the review by the team. Put a strategy together and deliver those action steps. It's not complicated. It may take us 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to put it all into place, depending on where you're at. We've gone through those steps today. I don't need to. Meeting 1, phone call. Meeting 2, Zoom. Meeting 3, the analyst. Meeting 4, putting a strategy in place. So I don't know about you, but one of the things that Tony Robbins talks about so often is that opportunity to be given in our life to actually support others in taking the knowledge we have and helping others become successful. We'd love the opportunity to sit down and talk to you about your journey. If we align, we'd love to take you on that journey and support you right through that process. If we don't, that's okay too. Hopefully you will have taken 1 or 2 nuggets away from sitting down and talking to us specifically about your situation. Thanks very much.